Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, we return to our hunt to gather chess.com achievements. Our most recent achievements were Killer King, where we got a checkmate with the king, and Mad Scientist, where we played 10 games of Crazy House chess. Today, I'll play until I get 3 strikes, an award for playing 10 games of 3-check chess. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, game number 1, we get the black pieces. Our opponent's rated 1300, and I have to admit that 3-check is one of those variants that I feel like doesn't get enough love. Because it sits right up there, probably in my top 5, but not enough for me to be constantly talking about it. But I think it's a very fun way to kind of accelerate the game. Instead of having to set up a whole entire checkmate, just developing a piece is enough to already be threatening some problems. You know, the queen follows, and then maybe you can throw a knight in the mix and somehow win the game. So we do have to play defensively, kind of track how every piece could possibly ever reach the king. It probably seems a little absurd, but even tracking that somehow this knight could maybe in some crazy way jump to the king, that was a terrible line of jumps, but you get my point, will be necessary. Let's go ahead and hit the queen. Okay, opponent blocks with the knight, fairly natural. Pretty much we're doing a London with the black pieces, which I think is a decently solid opening for this specific variant. There's no clear line of sight towards the king's position, and once we get all of these pieces out, probably something like this, we'll have the option to castle either way, depending on how our opponent decides to develop. Okay, we get g4, very aggressive. I'm just going to drop the bishop back. If my opponent decides to throw all their pieces my way, I mean, let's have at it. Okay, queen to e2. Let's keep developing. I'm going to kind of let my opponent create their own weaknesses and just have a very solid setup in the meantime. Ooh, okay, knight to b5 is definitely an interesting move. Should I take? My opponent can take back. That's check number 1. If I block and my opponent sacks the queen, that's check number 2. And I'm not sure where check number 3 would come from, but I don't really want to risk it. So I'm going to play a6 to boot the knight. If my opponent trades, then so be it. We have a fair trade. Okay, we do get that trade. We're also playing 3-0 time control, so there's no increment. If you run down to 10 seconds, that's exactly how much time you have to finish the game. So we do have to be very careful in the opening so we don't fall for any silly traps like right there, taking and then losing to check. We're going to go ahead and block the possibility of the sacrifice, but you have to balance that out with the fact that the game will continue after. So if you make it out of the opening A-okay, there's still a whole game left to play. Oh wait, I've just realized my opponent has a check on me. I just looked up here and I realized my opponent had a check, and I was thinking about it. I wasn't sure where it came from, and I just realized when our opponent captured that it was actually 1 check towards our king. So it wasn't actually a fair trade at all. Okay, it's not terrible. I mean, we can come back from it, but wow, that's quite disappointing that slipped my radar so easily. Okay, let's start playing some tricky moves. Or else I'm going to end up playing defense the whole game and just end up flagging my opponent, which I guess is a viable strategy, but it's quite a boring one. So right now we're threatening knight to g3, which is a fork. If our opponent takes, we take back with check. If our opponent blocks, maybe we sack the queen for check number 2. Not totally sure if it's worth it, but our opponent might fall for our bluff and let us pick up a free piece. Let's give it a try. Knight to g3, taking direct inspiration from our opponent's knight to b5 move. Oh, queen to f3. Okay, our opponent decides to lose the exchange instead of getting a check. We get the queen recapturing. Let's play b5, boot the bishop. Sure, c5. Grabbing space, trying to kind of choke out my opponent's position. And our opponent's down to 30 seconds as well. Okay, let's play knight to f6, threatening knight takes because it's pinned to the queen. Okay, d3 seems to ignore that altogether. So I'm going to take first, and then I'll take on g4. Should just be a free pawn. Then we have knight to e5, threatening the bishop, threatening check. Should be some fun ideas there. Opponent is now down to 24 seconds. Not a whole lot to work with, but they are threatening mate here with the idea of queen sack, king takes, bishop takes, wins the game outright. So knight back is basically forced. Don't ask me how I can see these sacrifices, but I couldn't clearly see that knight capturing was check. I have no idea. We get bishop back to d2. Let's just play like rook to c8. I mean, our opponent has to bring it home in 14 seconds, and that seems exceedingly unlikely, although I guess it's a possibility. We get e4. I'm going to go ahead and just take. Ooh, bishop to b5 is a check that I did not see. One more check and we lose the game, but our opponent has 5 seconds to bring it home. Okay, obviously threatening this check. We're going to go ahead and play queen d7 to defend it. Bishop to g5 doesn't seem to create any problems for me, so we are going to Hail Mary e3 to confuse our opponent. We get rook to d1, which actually gives us a check. 2 checks. We'll start with this check, and it seems that we win on time. Nice. With that, we win game number 1, but there's no award yet, so let's go ahead and move on to game number 2. All right, game number 2, we get the white pieces. No silly checks this time. I'm not falling for any silly checks. Okay, right away, there's a check here, so I can't develop normally. We'll play c3. Knight to f6. think that's totally fine. I mean, maybe there's like some crazy idea of like this, but then you have to defend f4, which seems unlikely. Okay, we get b6. Let's pin the knight. I'm not going to play a normal London system because it really doesn't benefit me all that much. I'd rather start restricting my opponent's pieces and gaining a little bit of extra space. Okay, knight to e4. Again, I don't think creates any concrete threats, but we're going to go ahead and trade the bishops. Develop ours, hit the knight. Bishop to b7 does defend it. Knight to d2. We want to challenge the center and force our opponent to either make a decision, okay, and they do, play d5. Let's play queen c2, target the knight. If we get f5, that's so aggressive that it might even get me to castle queenside. Okay, instead our opponent drops the pawn in the center. Nice, we're threatening the rook on a8, which is always a good thing. Even better if our opponent would castle, and then we can get a free check-in. Knight to b8, we might even sack the queen, although I'd probably rather keep it on the board, so maybe just take on a7. Our opponent should probably castle short to defend their own rook, but we'll see what they decide. Okay, I guess rook to c8 does solve the problem. It leaves stuff like queen to b7 on the table, though I'm not sure that does anything after short castle. So I'm going to castle myself, castle my king, nice and safe. I mean, there is the possibility of like the queen coming out and somehow sacking, but I don't think there'd be any follow through. Let's play queen to h4. I'm happy to trade queens and enter an endgame since I am up a pawn. Pawn to c5, opponent making an effort to kind of open up the center while their king is still there, which is quite amusing. Let's take with the queen. Now this is on the board. h5, that's check number 1. King to f8, check number 2. Opponent takes, and then check number 3 wins the game. Let's give it a try. Check number 1. And check number 1. I meant check number 2, and then that was check number 3, winning our second game. Let's go to move on to game number 3. All right, game number 3, we get the black pieces. We get e4. So obviously something like d6 immediately is silly. I guess the Caro-Kann is the way to go. Although it's a little bit restrictive because you kind of lean on this pawn to support your center, but if this pawn ever actually has to do its job, then there's checks. In fact, 2 if you get that trade. So I'm going to play e6. So there's no ideas of sacking and then developing the queen with check. Okay, queen to f3. I mean, if my opponent wants to sack the queen, who am I to stop my opponent from sacrificing the queen, right? So I'll play d6. It does give my opponent the chance to get 2 checks and bring out my king, but personally, I'm willing to fight that battle if it means I get a queen and a bishop for free. Okay, we get pawn to d3 instead. Our opponent's not willing to take that same risk. Let's play knight to g5, or knight to f6, holy smokes. I was thinking about bishop to g5 pinning the knight, so I just kind of combined everything. Okay, we actually do get bishop to g5. Let's go ahead and defend it with our own bishop. Knight to e2, okay, continue to develop. I am definitely just kind of huddling at the moment. Oh, and I've missed this check. Oh, wait a minute. If my opponent plays any natural move like knight c3 or even just castling, there's no more check. Not to mention, oh, okay, we do get knight to d2. Is there any way for me to still take advantage of this? Probably not. I'm just going to play h6. Maybe we can trade off this bishop. Nice, gives me a space to drop this bishop on d7. Okay, queen to g3 would be quite funny if we just castled and just challenged our opponent to take. But am I feeling so bold? Probably not. So I'm going to play rook to g8, and my long-term plan here is probably just bishop d7, queen c7, long castle, plenty of pieces to defend my king. Nice, and we finally do get the opportunity to give that check. Okay, we get pawn to c3. Fair enough. We'll play bishop d7, and I don't think our plan has changed at all. We just have 1 extra check up on our opponent, but we're still looking for long castle. b4 opens up the queen side. I mean, I guess if I castle long, that's where the attack should be anyways. But it's still quite bold. Let's try queen to h5. Because now I'm starting to think that if my opponent is willing to play so aggressively on the queen side, their plan is just to castle to the king side. So I should probably be there with my strongest piece, ready with my army to start some kind of attack and start looking for checks. Knight to f4. Oh, does that just trap my queen? Oh, not quite, because I have queen to g4, but it was darn close. I definitely didn't think about it. Let's play queen to g4. We get that trade. Okay, we do get that trade. We still have a check on our opponent, and I'm not sure that this is actually penetrable in any sense. Okay, and our opponent castles. Let's do the same. Let's castle out of the way, and now it's an opposite side battle. a4, obviously our opponent leans into it. We both have a minute left on the clock. Let's play d5, and I'm kind of thinking about bishop d6 and maybe taking on h2. So I'll take back. Obviously hits the bishop. Okay, bishop moves back. Let's hit the knight next. Ooh, g3, okay, defends the knight. Let's force the issue with g5, move the knight out of the way for good, and then maybe we're looking at like h5, h4. Okay, knight to h5 stops that idea. Okay, we'll find a different way. Let's play f5, maybe bishop to e8 is enough to just boot the knight. We're down to 30 seconds, so is our opponent. Okay, knight back to d2. We'll continue with our plan. I'm not sure how this knight is saved other than like f3 counterattacking our own knight. Knight to f6 is free. And with any luck, our opponent will ignore this and come to defense, which they do. Let's play h5, h4, down to 24 seconds, but we still have more time than our opponent. Nice, that's a free knight. King comes up. Let's do it with the pawn. Check number 2. King goes back, and check number 3 wins us game number 4. All right, let's go to move on to game number 5. Oh, rematch. Sure, why not? All right, let's start with d4. c5, right away looking for queen here. If I play c3, takes, queen a5 still works. So that's kind of an issue. Let's play c3, and if our opponent takes, we'll take with the queen instead. That way there's no obvious check. There's just like annoying knight to c6, forcing our queen back, right? We'll move the queen back. I can see the London maybe isn't the perfect opening for 3 check, but it has served our purpose on several other games. So we have bishop g7. Let's play bishop f4. I mean, there is a check here, but it loses a piece outright. Okay, our opponent plays knight to f6. If I can just get like bishop e2 and then castling, then we're in a good spot. I mean, we're missing kind of a critical central pawn, but it's not the end of the world. We dodged a check for it. Okay, e6, we castle. Everybody's safe. d5, continue to develop. Knight to a5. Okay, now we start entering suspicious territory because that's a little bit of a weird move. The knight really has no future on these squares, unless the plan is like a6, b5 perhaps. But we're going to turn our attention to the king. How do we actually make an attack here? Let's start with knight to e5, and then maybe we can reinforce it with knight to f3. It's really difficult because there's no centralized pawn to kind of serve as a support. We get knight to e4. I mean, I guess we could just trade everything, but that's so boring. Let's play knight g4 instead, right? We're kind of looking for this check, and it's a fair trade, so we basically just walk away with an extra check. We do get this trade, which is fine. I don't really want to open up the center. Like, I don't want to take and then open up the center for queen trades. I want to keep my pieces on the board, so there's actually attacking chances. Nice, queen to b6 overlooks check number 1. We do lose the pawn on b2, but it's an extra check, and with any luck, we'll actually weaken these dark squares enough that we can play something like this and look for an attack. So rook to d8. Very tempting to drop this check, but probably premature. So let's play b3 and boot the knight. Knight to a3. Let's boot the knight again, looking for c4. c4 hits the knight, but actually looks for mate. Nice, our opponent takes. And we get checkmate. Don't forget, you can win this by checkmate as well. You don't have to just get 3 checks. With that, we win game number 5. Let's go to move on to game number 6. All right, game number 6, we get the white pieces again. Let's try d4. If our opponent doesn't play c5, then I think we're in a good spot. Nice, e6, we'll play c3. g6, this is a very unique setup because normally it leaves you with too many empty dark squares, but who knows, it might be different for a 3-check chess. Okay, knight to c6, this is just normal development. In the perfect world, we get d5 and then knight to e5. With plenty of attacking chances, the queen comes out to play, and it's a whole party. In the imperfect world, what? I was going to say in the imperfect world, we get d6, and that's not a possibility, but I didn't think about the most perfect world, where we just get free pieces for no reason. Nice. I mean, I was even looking if there was like any crazy skewers that lead into check or something. I don't see any. There's no fork. I mean, it just looks like we're threatening a rook now. Okay, knight to e7, that's a free rook. Check number 1, check number 2. Or we can just play bishop to h6 and win it outright, which is probably more concrete, threatening mate. Knight back is another free piece. King forward, check number 1. And we do get the resignation to win game number 6. All right, let's go to move on to game number 7. All right, game number 7, we get the black pieces, and this is the first opponent that's rated significantly more than we are. I'm still going to play Caro Kann because I still feel like this kind of shell defense system has worked out pretty decently for us. Let's play d6. It's also the first game where I could win more points than I can lose. Meaning, if I win this game, I get 11 points. If I lose, I only lose 5. Let's play e6. Just kind of turtle shell our whole position. We get castles. Our opponent is definitely ahead on development. We've just moved 3 pawns. But I don't think that's critical. Let's play knight to f6. As long as our king is safe, and eventually we find a good spot for him, I think we'll be fine. Okay, so bishop e7. Obviously, I'm not going to castle quite yet, because I don't want to give my opponent the all clear to play like knight g5 and whatever, look for some crazy attack. E5, takes. We could trade queens. Let's just play knight d7. Let's keep it simple. Okay, we do get knight to g5 anyways, probably looking to take. If I take back, there's check number 1, brings the king towards the center, d5, takes, rook comes out. My whole bloodline is disappointed, and that just about wraps up the game before it even really starts. So, how do I defend this? Maybe d5, pawn to e5, knight to e4, sack a pawn? I mean, it's a possibility. Is it the most attractive move I've ever seen? No. If I castle right now, takes, you know what? I'm going to have to commit to this castle. I didn't want to because it just allows crazy stuff like f4, bringing the rook over. Queen comes into play whenever she pleases. Oh, we get a sacrifice on e6. Takes is check number 1, and really my opponent has only given up, quote unquote, a piece for 2 pawns, which even in normal chess really isn't that bad. And now has a check over me. So let's move the king out of the way. f4, we have to get rid of this bishop, so we'll play knight to b6, looking for this trade. Maybe we can even like trade off queen g4. That is a terrible arrow. Queen to g4, looking for a queen trade. And normally if you're getting attacked, you do want to have queen trades because that means the most powerful piece literally can't be part of the attack anymore. So it's a little bit of pressure off your position. Okay, f5 blocks that idea immediately. This player is no beginner. Let's play queen to e8, try to force it. Okay, bishop to g5. If I play here, our opponent takes. I take, sacks for check number 2. f6 is check number 3, and that wins for our opponent. So yeah, this opponent is doing a great job of keeping the pressure on me. Let's play this and try to get a bishop trade. Queen to g4. We're going to trade anyways. That looks like a misclick. Oh, I feel kind of bad. Oh, and we get the resignation. Oh, that's so sad to see. Oh, okay. We win game number 7. We're offered a rematch though. Yes. Absolutely, let's play another game. All right, we got 11 points of rating with questionable conditions, but we did get it. Okay, c5. Obviously, our opponent's going to play the optimal opening. We'll see if our opponent actually takes on d4. Ooh, knight to f6 ignores it. Okay, bishop g5. Let's just play annoying chess. I can't let my opponent get too active or else I get destroyed. I know that so far. Okay, what? Knight to e4. Bishop back? Is this okay? g5, holy smokes, this is aggressive. Bishop back again? Our opponent is definitely out for vengeance. That's not a doubt in my mind whatsoever. Let's play d5, just kind of close up the center. I don't want any troubles on this diagonal. So we'll hit the knight by pushing the pawn past. Knight to d4, wow, our opponent does not care at all. If I take, that's check number 1. If I block, that's a trade that leads to check number 2. And I don't think that I could stand this opponent with 2 checks under his belt. So let's play this. We'll play knight to f3, just kind of trade off the knight. Oh wait, that's a check. What am I doing? Holy smokes. This is literally what happened in the first game where I gave away a free check for no reason, but okay, it's a little bit of pressure off our position for only a check. Okay, knight takes. I'll take back with this pawn. Now we have to be careful with ideas that open up this file because obviously our king is just standing there waiting to receive checks. Although to be fair, our opponent's king is also on that file, so it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Queen to c7. This is a safe check for our opponent, so probably a good idea to just block that. Bishop g7, maybe looking for sacrificing, but I'm not going to sit around and find out, so we'll just castle out of the way. h5. Okay, our opponent is completely ignoring the king's position, so I'm going to try to punish that with d6. See if I can force this to open up. Maybe if our opponent takes, there's like rook to e1 with probably winning ideas. Okay, queen takes. We're definitely going to take back, which means our opponent's attack is no longer really quite as poisonous as it was a moment ago when the queen was sitting there waiting to join. And we've weakened this file, but okay, our opponent castles out of the way. Fair enough. Let's finish our development before we get carried away with other stuff. Rook to e8. Not really the most challenging move in the world. I'm going to challenge this open file, and because this bishop is stuck, there's no way for this rook to join the battle. So it's really like my opponent's playing without 2 pieces, at least for the meantime. So I should win the fight to conquer this open file. Ooh, rook to e5 is a good workaround. Let's boot the rook, f4. I mean, I have plenty of pawns to pull from here. I literally have a little pawn cube that I have, so might as well start pushing some out. Okay, we'll take back. We've now undoubled one of our pawns, challenging e5. Okay, our opponent doesn't give us the check so easy peasy. Let's push again. If the rook returns to e5, knight to c4 should be quite a problem. So knight c4, not how the knight moves. Targets d6, targets e5. I guess our opponent could take, but then we have check number 1. We take on d6. We either win a piece or the rook, and it should be pretty downhill from there. Okay, we do get the trade. Let's go ahead and take back. And we have about a minute more than our opponent does on the clock. Bishop to f8. What's the easiest way to farm checks here? Probably rook here and just look for checks. So let's go rook to, well, I'm thinking because rook to e8 is even more challenging. If the pawn moves rather, to try to get the bishop out, bishop b7 is forced to defend the rook. Not to mention knight takes d6 because this bishop is pinned, but I need checks. I mean, at the end of the day, I need checks. This position is probably draw-ish, maybe, because I'm ahead on development, even if my pieces are worse than my opponents. But I'll try to get some checks under my belt for the meantime, obviously looking for rook to g3. Okay, king shuffles out of the way. Now we're going to play rook to e8 because it forces our opponent to defend the bishop. Also by moving back to g8 or else f6 is check. Nice, we'll take on d6, winning a piece. Nice, we'll take with the rook, so we can take with the knight, force win a pawn, and this endgame should be more than comfortably won as long as I don't fall for 2 more silly checks, which unfortunately I'm capable of. But with that, we get the resignation and win game number 8. Let's go to move on to game number 9. All right, game number 9, we get the white pieces, d4. Oh wait, we've played this player before. Okay, we get e6, c3 to stop bishop b4. c6, no new threats, so we'll continue to develop as normal. Okay, bishop g5 is a little bit of a weird way to develop because it stops the natural d5 push. Okay, queen to c7, maybe just setting up to double sacrifice for 2 checks on h2, but in that case, I just won't castle that way. Okay, that is a free piece, and we take those. f6, so I can get queen to h5, g6, sack the knight, and it's a whole party of checks at that point. But we get the resignation, and with that, we win game number 9. Let's go to move on to game number 10. All right, game number 10, new opponent, we get the black pieces. Knight to c3. That is definitely a first, and it allows me to capture the center, so I see no reason why I should not. Oh wait, e4. Okay, e4 could be a little bit of an issue, because even normal moves like d4 walks into bishop b5, but we get e3, a more tame response, which does allow us to play c6 and block this check. Queen to f3 is super aggressive. I kind of want to just play e5, and if my opponent wants to sack their queen for a check, by all means, that check is yours. But alas, our opponent decides against it, and if we take here, that's check number 1. So I'm going to play knight to d7. So now I'm actually threatening to take the knight. Oh, that's check number 1. Oh, I keep forgetting that that's an idea to just move the knight up to b5 and drop a forced check. But we do get a piece. Okay, knight to g5, clearly looking for this little combo. Let's play h6 to protect that square. Oh, wait! Queen takes and the knight g5 is winning. No, we can't lose the last game. We can't get the award by losing a game. That's so bad. Oh, and the worst part is there was no defense as well, because if queen takes and I move out of the way, you can just sack the queen anywhere for that 3rd check. Our opponent doesn't see it, and we sigh the biggest sigh of relief ever. Okay, we've defended that. Holy smokes, got a little too confident there. Let's play bishop d6. We have that idea of h2 after an e4 push. Queen to g3. Okay, rook g8 will defend this pawn, and now e4 is definitely on the table. Okay, bishop b2. The problem with e4 is I'm not sure what the follow-up is. Queen moves over, and then what? I take a pawn and then get my bishop trapped? I mean, doesn't look the best. So let's play knight to c5, get the knight into the center. Maybe we can develop the bishop, long castle. And I don't love that the bishop is on this, or rather the king is on this long diagonal, but we can always shuffle it out of the way later. Okay, we do get long castles from our opponent. Let's play bishop to e6, nice and solid. King moves over, we'll follow suit with long castle, 1 tempo behind. And I would argue that because of our control over the center, we're actually better positioned to look for an attack. We get queen to h4. Let's move the king out of the way. Like I said, I don't want any trouble on this light square diagonal. Ooh, queen to b4 is super interesting because it lines up with the bishop. So what happens if knight to d3? Our opponent sacks for 1 check and then we lose a piece. I mean, I'm fine with that. So let's play knight to d3. Ooh, okay, we do get the queen sack, which I think is a little bit... Oh wait, that's 2 checks, right? Because we lost that... Oh my goodness, I'm so bad at keeping track of these checks. Okay, we're 2 checks down, but we have a queen now, so I'm feeling pretty good. Whether that's a justified feeling or not is a totally different conversation. Let's play king to a8, so the only possible check is on this diagonal, and that's defended by 2 pawns. 50 seconds for our opponent to bring this home. Okay, rerouting the knight to target e5. Let's play knight to d7, looking for a reroute of our own. Oh, we get knight to e2 instead. I guess bringing the knight to c3 inadvertently traps the bishop, so I can force this trade now. I mean, I guess our opponent could play knight to c1 if they don't want to double their pawns, but we get knight to c3 anyways. Let's trade. We get pawn takes back. This is a very natural move, but e4 may stop it. Let's give it a try anyways. Bishop to f5, 30 seconds for our opponent, just under 50, basically 40 for us. Okay, free pawn. Knight to a4, nice, looking to bring it home with that check. I guess king to b8 is forced. And it doesn't walk into check, so it should be okay. Okay, f4 looks to open this file, or rather this diagonal, sorry. Let's play bishop to b5, because I still have a dream of taking this knight and putting my king back in the corner. Sure, you can take my bishop. That's totally fine. Okay, pawn takes. Let's move the bishop back to b5. Then we'll play king to a8. Okay, king to a8 because our opponent's looking for this check. This should just be a free pawn. 10 seconds for our opponent. Rook shuffles over, which is unfortunately a free rook, but we have 19 seconds left. Let's take. Bishop to e5 doesn't set up anything new. Let's just, I guess, play f6. I mean, the king is on a light square. It's literally impossible for that bishop to ever give check. Okay, c5. We're going to start opening up our opponent's position and start causing some problems. d4. Okay, we'll take. And our opponent times out for us to win game number 10. Okay, we should have the award now. Let's go see if that actually happened. Nice, and we do get the 3 strikes award. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below what you guys think of the chess.com awards. Are there any that you guys think that I should get? Or are there any other games that you want me to play? I will see you guys in the next one.